Morning and good afternoon for joining. Welcome to webinar 6 of our webinar series. We are now moving to the final parts of the PIPIN webinar series, and I'll be your moderator for today. And I'm very happy to see all of you and more happy to see the emojis you are sending. So you're all excited for this webinar. So for this webinar, this is a pathway to successful NbS project implementation. Last webinar, we looked at project development. This week, we'll move into implementation, strategic planning, and effective management. Our expected outcome for today is understand key project management principles and techniques for effective NbS implementation, gain insights into community engagement, stakeholder collaboration, and resource planning. Also learn method to align project objectives and national and community priorities. And we'll explore adaptive management tools and mail integration to respond to real-time challenges. And finally, we'll hear lesson learned from practitioners managing NbS implementation across the Pacific context. So these are our outcomes. Briefly, I'll go over the agenda. So in this today's session, we will have our first session. We'll start with Ludwig. He will unlock critical success factors for implementing NbS projects in the Pacific, followed by Clotilde. She's our engagement and outreach advisor at COMS at SPC. She will look at strategic communication for NbS implementation. Then I will talk about engaging communities for collaborative implementation. And then we'll have an energizer, a quick one. And this will be facilitated by Jacinta. She's our communication assistant at SPC. And then we will have Lorraine Sivo. She's a project manager from SPREP and the Pacific ecosystem-based adaptation to climate change. She will talk about adaptive project management. She's been working very closely on the ground on this PBAC project, and she will be also responding to the challenges that is faced. And then we will have Leah. Leah is our planning, monitoring, evaluation, and learning advisor at SPC. She will look at monitoring for impact, implementing MEL into implementation. And then we will have a Q&A session, and like in all webinars, we'll also have a breakout discussion where we all can participate and discuss the questions that would be given. So that is a brief agenda for today. I'll let the speakers also introduce themselves when they start with the session. And just if you have any question, you can use the chat box for that. And also during the Q&A session, if you are comfortable, you can always unmute and also ask questions for this session. So without further delay, we'll start with our webinar. So our first speaker is Ludwig. By now, you know Ludwig very well. So he has been presenting he's an expert in NbS, and he's been presenting in all the webinars. So he's the SPC's NbS mainstreaming advisor, and he will unpack critical success factors for NbS in the Pacific.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Rakeshni, and yeah, no need for me to introduce myself again. Just to let you know that Leah is with me and she's connecting right now. Can you share the screen, Rakeshni, please, so that we can have the first presentation?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rakeshni. So good morning, everyone, again, and thank you for being here with us to this sixth webinar. So today we are going to look at the practical actions that help us to move from planning that we've seen earlier to real meaningful NbS implementation in the Pacific context. And the steps that we are going to present today are drawn from our experience and are about making things work on the ground and not just on paper. The idea is really to come with you today and provide you some very important key recommendation and pitfall based on our experience, which we believe are very important for your NbS project to succeed and which are often overlooked during project development and implementation stages. So next slide, please, Rakeshni. So just having a second. Sorry for that. So I would like to first start with some summary of the key regional implementation challenges. When we talk about NbS in the Pacific, I think we all agree, and it's been presented already, that it's important to recognize just how complex the Pacific context can be. We have a patchwork of policies, institutions, not always talking to each other, but as well resources, both financial and technical, which are stretched thin. It's never just about the science or the finance. Engaging our communities, making space for traditional landowners, women, youth, this is where projects really come alive, and that's a very important aspect of project implementation. But we know that project timelines are so short and climate finance is hard to access. It often feels like we are spreading before we even have our shoes on. And so we need to take time. That's something that I tried to present in the previous webinar. Taking time is key as much as we can. So despite these hurdles, we see again and again that projects are most effective when they are community-driven, with broad and inclusive participation. That's our key strength in the Pacific, and we are doing projects together, not on the behalf of someone. So next slide, please. So that was just to set the scene a little bit. So based on all these realities, we've narrowed down what actually helps 7 practical steps. And think of this as your field-tested recipe for making NbS work, starting from building a shared vision right through to making sure you're capturing and learning from your impact. So I'm not going to go through the 7 steps right now, since we are going to deep dive into each of them in the following slide. So next slide for the first step, please, Rakeshni. Thank you. This first step is about reconfirming and communicating shared vision with all partners. One of the best ways to get implementation off to a strong start is by gathering everyone around the table right from the beginning. We've seen that during implementation stage, but it's also important to do it again when the project implementation will start. The idea for you is to bring your own project partners, your key community representatives, the relevant authorities for a proper kickoff. And that's not just a formality, but a real moment to talk together about your goals, you double check everyone's role and spot any new issues before they can grow during the implementation. And trust me, you'll be surprised how often projects trip up simply because people assume everyone is still aligned. Usually we can see that there is a significant amount of time when we submit the concept note, the proposal, and when we start the implementation. That can be up to a year sometimes. So a quick check-in, whether it's a short workshop or even a virtual call, can reveal misunderstandings that you might not have noticed until much later. The pitfall here is to not assume alignment. Surface those differences right now at the beginning while they are small and manageable. Because if you don't do so, and if you assume that everyone are aligned, you will realize later on during the implementation that's often not the case. Things may have changed. So it's really important to put again everyone around the table before we start again implementation. So that's the first step. The second one, next slide, please, Rakeshni, is about formalizing and activating your contractual arrangement. I'm sorry, that's not the most sexy, but we know when it comes to project implementation, that's what it is about also. Administrative activities and contractual arrangement are one of them. So once you have that shared vision confirmed, you need to make it official with your partners. So get all those partnership agreements, the subcontract or MOU, signed and distributed to make sure that everyone really understands what's expected, the timelines, deliverable, the reporting, and that everything is written and agreed by both parties through this contractual arrangement. It's always worth scheduling an agreement review meeting before the signature, where you clarify the key things: who's responsible for what are the payment terms, how will you deal with any of this problem. And trust me here, if you skip this step or leave the details vague, you will be almost guaranteed to face delays or disputes down the road. So it takes time to do it at the beginning, but it will save time later during implementation because you will have a clear responsibility written down, agreed, and signed. And that's a pitfall. Don't let anything important remain a handshake or we will sort it later. Get it in writing and get everyone on board. An issue will be easier to fix when it's managed as early as possible. It's very rare that an issue will decrease by itself over time. And so the sooner you handle that, the better. Next slide, please, Rakeshni. So it's about step 3, it's about updating and activating your action plan. So now you want to move beyond your plans you submitted to the funding proposal and turn it into a flexible roadmap, which means assigning concrete tasks, updating it as you learn from the field, and make it visible to everyone. Again, the plans that you must have developed during the proposal stage may have changed because of many different update or context update or anything that may have changed. So confirm that your work plan is still manageable and still realistic. You can use simple tool for that, from Gantt chart to word chart, online dashboard, regular checkings, whatever suits you, but that will make a big difference. And here is the catch. If you stick to your outdated plan or forget to keep your people and your partner informed, your team will most likely drift and you will miss important changes on the ground. So don't let your plan gather dust, as we can say, but keep it evolving and keep everyone in the loop, all the partner, everyone in the team, to make sure that they have a clear view on your action plan and make sure that you are considering adaptive management. These action plans are really without any bumps on the road, and you usually have to adapt them almost constantly. Next slide, please. So this step 4 is about revisiting and expanding your stakeholder engagement for implementation. I'm going to be a bit brief here because Rakeshni will focus her presentation later on that specific topic. But this is where NbS projects really stand apart by going deeper with engagement and with people. Don't just tick the box on stakeholder mapping. I really recommend you to put real effort into regular participatory engagement through community meetings, focus group, even identifying local champions. We know it requires time, but that's the best way for you to build a trustful relationship with your partners and the final beneficiaries of our actions. So it's not just about having the right names on your list to please a donor, but making sure that women, youth, people with disabilities, traditional leaders, but also private sectors, all have a seat at the table, and everyone directly or indirectly affected by the project will have a say in the project. And what's the pitfall here? If you stop at initial consultation that has been done during the development phase, you'll miss the adaptive management that keeps project relevant. So keep those conversations going with your partners so you don't end up blindsided by the issue the community could have seen coming earlier and without letting you know. Again, as you can see, communication is key with your partners. Next slide, please, Rakeshni. So now it's about linking and coordinating and collaborating with other ongoing initiative in your area or the connected areas or ecosystems. So nobody benefits from reinventing the wheel. I think we can all agree on that. So early on, as early as possible, reach out to others working in the same space or same area as you do. We recommend synchronizing up your field visits, sharing resources, set up shared communication. You can use whatever suits you, WhatsApp groups, regular checking, whatever works for you. But this will avoid duplication and also open up for learning from others' experience. But the pitfall here is real. If you stay isolated, just looking at your project implementation without looking at what's going on aside, you'll miss out on synergies and sometimes even make the same mistake as others before you, or doing activities that can be counterproductive with other ongoing initiative in the area. So coordination here is a force multiplier, and don't let it go to waste, really. That's very important. And again, these steps are designed from our experience, but also taking into account some of the key aspects of the NbS standard that provide good practices. But I will get back on this a little bit later. Next slide, Wakeshni. So step 6, it's about risk management. And risk management, trust me, is not just a formality. We may see it as a requirement from donors for proposal, but that's way more than that. It's a way for you to adapt to and be prepared for any arising risks that may occur during your implementation. So what we recommend here is to refresh your risk log regularly, assign someone to monitor the key risks, and make sure you check in on this every month or every quarter, I mean, on regular basis. It's also important to involve the full team, your field staff, the community representative, technical experts that will be able to share with you some identified risks or mitigation solutions that you may not have thought of. Most issues give us early warning signs, but if we neglect this risk management until it's a crisis, again, you will lose a chance to adapt. So it's too late, it will become too challenging. And that's the pitfall. Don't let risks creep up on you, and face them early and again together. So let's move to the last but not least step. Again, here, I'm gonna be a bit quick on it because Leah's going to present into more details after, and we will have a monitoring and evaluation dedicated webinar in 2 weeks. So MEL, monitoring, evaluation, and learning, should never be an afterthought. From the very beginning, you've seen last week when we discussed about project development, we encourage you to look and setting the basis for your monitoring and evaluation plan. Make sure everyone knows what they are tracking, how you will collect your baseline data, and who's responsible for capturing this lesson learned. Again, here, what's recommended is to do at the very early stage MEL onboarding, we call that this way, to use simple data capture tools. Again, whatever please you, it can be photo to assess like a state of an ecosystem, it can be checklists, surveys, you name it. But here is a warning. If you wait too long to get started or forget to document your starting point, your baseline, it will become almost impossible to show real progress or to learn what's working because you miss the opportunity to assess your baseline. And when it's an environmental baseline, things may have changed, and so you won't be able to capture exactly the state of your ecosystem at the very early stage of implementation. So get the MEL going early, and it's what turns your good project into great projects. So next slide, I was thinking that it may worth repeating, most project issues are preventable. And this slide is about summarizing some of these common pitfalls in implementation that we've seen very often as part of our experience and following up NbS project. If you skip the early alignment, you work in silos, you delay stakeholder engagement, or let your plans get outdated, you will almost certainly hit trouble at some point. Don't fall into the trap of focusing only on the technical issues, technical results. This project, specifically NbS, are a lot about human and human relationships. So again, regularly review your risks, keep up with your MEL, and actually using the NbS standards and self-assessment tool as a guide will make a big difference. These tools are not just made to stay online, but they are made for you to be used. So let's have next slide, please, Rakeshni. So this one is just a reminders on the tools available, which are the NbS standards and the self-assessment tool, and how to use this tool efficiently. So we try to explain at every steps of your project where and how to use this tool. So it's very important to use this tool as a living assessment, I would say, and specifically the assessment tool. During kickoff, use the assessment tool as a team exercise to ensure that everyone, again, shares a common understanding, but also to allow you, more importantly, to define the gaps of your NbS intervention. That's what the assessment tool is made for. It's like to identify what you're doing well, what can be improved, so that gives you a roadmap for improvement. And that's what you will be asked to do during like regular review of the self-assessment tool at key milestone, either midterm, quarterly, or whatever works for you, to reflect on your progress, but also adapt your action. For example, if you've seen that some of your criteria, balance of trade-off, for example, or a clear objective for biodiversity outcome had some gaps, and this wasn't really well prepared, that's an opportunity 6 months later when you update the assessment tool to mark the progress you've done in that aspects. And again, it's recommended to do so before any major reporting so that you can provide your partners, but also your donors with like strong evidence on why your project is a strong NbS project and any room for improvement. What is recommended is to use this tool as it pleases you. We know that it's not very easy to access, so that's why we are working currently in developing some specific guidelines to it with our colleagues from IUCN, SPREP, and other experts in the region. That's ready to help you use this tool the easiest way as possible. And we encourage you also to include some of these key criteria and indicators from the standards to your monitoring and evaluation plan. So next slide, please. And that's how I'm going to wrap up. I just made a last slide to summarize the key recommendation. So here they are. Be transparent and formal with your rules and agreements. Keep your action plan and risk log dynamic, open to input from your whole team. That doesn't have to be something specific and only actionable by the management team. It has to be shared in transparent manner with all your project stakeholders. Coordinate with others. Don't isolate your project. Make sure to identify like cooperation opportunities. Make engagement ongoing and genuinely inclusive, as well as monitor, document, and adapt for the very first day. Don't hide the tough stuff. That's a very key advice I can give. Share the challenges and the lessons as well as the success. And always use, again, this NbS standard and the self-assessment tool as a regular part of your process for continuing improving your project. So in summary, and that's how I will conclude my presentation today, successful NbS implementation is really about strong practical foundation and a willingness to learn and adapt. Again, if you're spending time at the beginning, that will be some time that you will save during implementation. If you follow these 7 steps, you will give your project the best possible start, and you will be ready to deepen your community engagement, which is what makes this solution truly last in our region and make your project sustainable. So thank you very much. I will now hand over to Clotilde for the communication aspect of the implementation. And thank you very much. Happy to get some questions if you have some. Thank you.
Thank
Right.
you, Ludo. Clotilde, we are sharing the
Presentation. Yeah, so well, first I'm going to introduce myself. So I'm Clotilde Richalet. I work at SPC and I'm the Strategic Communication Outreach and Engagement Advisor here based in Nouméa. I just wanted to say it's great to do my presentation right after Ludo, because I think even if Ludo just talked about implementation, and I'm going to talk about comms, which is often seen as like outreach and outcomes. I have the same feeling that it's great to include your communication team at the very beginning of the project. So at least we understand and go step by step with you on the different projects, different implementation, the stakeholders, the people you're going to meet. And I think all we're working on is very technical, but it's always human-centered. And it's great to be able for the communication team to understand exactly where we're coming from to understand where we're going, kind of. I think it's the same thing with mail as well. I think we're trying more and more, and Leah will probably talk about it, to work hand in hand so the project can have like all those different components to have like a great development and a great outcome. So I'm going to start with some general slides about communication and general project, and then go a little deeper into an example, which is Protège. I think everybody knows the Protège project that has been going on for a few years at SPC that is coming to an end. So I also thought it was going to be a nice little clin d'œil, like little homage to Protège that has been doing such a great work on comms for the past few years in the region. So first of all, strategic communication. What exactly are we talking about? So here we're talking about the nature-based solution project, but it's always what I kind of was saying at the beginning. It's beyond all the technical problem we can face in any project that we have. It has to be people-centered and culturally grounded project, because this is what we're doing in the end. It's working for the people in the region. So why different strategic communication matters? First, we need to build trust and transparency. And I think that's also why all different teams on projects need to work together and in hand right at the start. If we understand what we're doing, then we can talk about it in a very trustful and transparent way. I think also it can inspire action and ownership from the different parts of people working in the team and on the project and with different stakeholders. And it also connects the different stakeholders. I can see here during this meeting, we are working for different organizations, but again, all in the same direction. So strategic comms is trying to align our different works, technical works or different views to work in the same way. And also it builds bridges between traditional knowledge and the scientific expertise. And in that way also, that's how do we safeguard what we already know from a generation in the region, in the Pacific region, to try and help and try like to the nature-based solution for the region. So different approach to support our communication strategies is planning from the very beginning. So understanding the project from the base to understanding what are the needed for the outcomes and how we can best support, elevate, and translate the work that we do. We also need clear messaging. So the project management, the mail team, and all different parts of the project can help us do that, understanding better to have clear messaging, understanding the different target audience, and how to translate in the best ways our work. Also, project is done and we do the communication, but also we need to look and see further and understanding the long-term impact that the work is going to have on the different communities and the different part of the region through engagement, visibility, and advocacy. So again, globally, the goal is to ensure that well, the Pacific-led nature-based solution, in this case, are seen, heard, and supported across the region. So that would be for my little introduction. So strategy comes. So we've been talking a lot. Strategic, the word strategic is coming out a lot lately, outreach and engagement. But I think it is very much a necessity, a need to understand and plan ahead and be strategic in the way we think of communication. It's not just putting out a few social media or putting out a press release. It needs to fulfill like a bigger mission. And so for that, we need to like think ahead and really develop a strategy around our projects. So the outreach and engagement side is definitely also for larger counterpart than just the team that is working on a project. For me, it's definitely an opportunity to elevate the project with our staff in our different organization. The staff of the organizations we're working with, and also like the bigger, wider community of the different countries we're working with and working for. Also, like I said at the beginning, it has to be, to me, a people-centered approach, because all the projects are going to have impact on people. Like the science need to be translated to help and have impact on the people in the communities. On the visibility side activities, so obviously very important because we're comms. So the tools that we are using needs to be targeted and have impact on the different targets or audience we're working for. So to develop our project, there's many different ways, but I think it starts from the building of the project and interacting with the communities and the different organizations we're working for, that everybody understand where we're going. And for this, we need clear evidence of what we're working on and clear objectives of where we're working, to what we're working towards. So this includes, our work, project, partner, etc. Next slide, please, Rakashni. So, oh, it's missing a bit. It's missing the bottom. Oh, well, never mind. So those four next slide anyway are to show you the four objectives that we have internally at SPC, to explain a bit of how we're seeing the different objectives. And I'll go pretty fast on them, but like the first objective that is interesting to work on is focus on system and processes. And first, the internal outreach and engagement that we can have in a team. So this means co-develop the communication, have like some community of practice, get together, brainstorm, and also make sure that the entire team is on the same page. The second slide, well, the next slide, objective 2. Oh, well, now that's coming up. Okay, never mind. It's in different little piece. But so next slide, please, objective 2. And if you want to double click, yeah. Sorry about that. Thank you. So objective 2, focus on our science, technical our science, and knowledge is translated and used. So definitely, how do we make the data, science and technical data that we have into something accessible and relevant for all the Pacific members, different organizations and communities we're working for. Objective 3, if you want to double click, and I'm realizing that I'm very slow, so I'll try to hurry. Objective 3, obviously, coordination, planning, and inclusion. At SPC, we definitely have some integrated program. So the natural-based solution is one project, but we can definitely use the capacity of different teams also to get together and be creative and co-develop different projects. Objective 4, please. And which for me is one of the most important, is the people and practitioners. So how do we engage, and how do we use the coordination with relevant communities? How do we use, well, by use, I mean, yeah, how do we use media or communication, website, social media, to engage better at the end of the project? So next we're going to talk about Protège. So I think everybody heard of Protège, which is an SPC project for the past few years, Projet régional océanien des territoires pour la gestion durable des écosystèmes. And that is one of the great example on NbS that has been developed at SPC. So I got 5 outcomes that I'm gonna go through on the next slide. So action for NbS made by Protège is definitely one of the great one, is the community engagement initiatives. So the project had a huge numbers of workshops and field visits, and it was really engaging with local communities, lots of direct discussions on the field. And those kind of events and workshops facilitate the knowledge exchange, again, safeguarding the knowledge and looking to the future. And it allows to demonstrate really the work we're doing, and bring the communities together and involve the communities. Second point is the collaboration with local organization. Protège did a great job in the different French territories, but also more in the Pacific region, partnering with association on the ground, and to co-create and disseminate the communication materials. Again, for a culturally relevant project that sticks to the specific needs of different communities. We are, so next slide, sorry. Protège did a great job on the educational materials. They had different tools. They had like that Protège in the box, like an actual box with the tools inside, where they could go around and explain in a very ludic way, in a very educational way, with tutorials and guides. So I think this is a great way to go talk to people in communities and explain, instead of long talks like I'm doing right now, to actually have something you can touch and understand and play with. So I think this is definitely one of the great outcomes of the Protège projects. The next slide, please. So another thing, instead of only explaining and showing like we had with the box on the previous slide and the different tools, it's a capacity building and training. So Protège is a great example of conducting training sessions where you can actually build the capacity of local people, local stakeholders, communities, including the government official, NGOs, and different community leaders. And I think that's definitely something, because we always talk people-centered projects, but then that's how do we do to include those people in the project? Because by by having those training sessions and actually talking and having hands-on experience on the products, that's how people understand even better the project and the outcomes. And my last slide is about like more visibility and more multimedia outreach. So how do we use our platforms in different organizations to showcase the outcomes to a broader audience? So we all know, like, everybody is using their own websites, and we have YouTube channels, example of here, Facebook. We have all the social media, Instagram, X, and I'm forgetting one, LinkedIn. So also understanding on the outcomes, how those various multimedia platform can reach a broader audience, because each of them have like a target audience usually that is going to be more or less interested or responsive to different way of presenting the project. So it's also understanding those target audience and making it accessible and readable for all those different audiences, to increase visibility and awareness, which is what we all want in the end. And thank you very much. I'm a bit over time, but I hope it was interesting. Thank you.
It was. Thank you so much, Clotilde, for sharing communication and the project. So now I'll be shifting to community engagement. A lot of community practice is important in NbS, and I'll discuss methods to foster some collaborative implementation. So engaging communities for collaborative implementation for NbS. So we'll look at the first thing that we would want to know is the importance of community engagement and local ownership. I'll look at some of the reasons why it is important to include local communities, how we can do it, and look at one project where it has been done and it has been quite a successful project. So the first one is local knowledge. Now this one is a slight difference from the traditional local knowledge. This is mostly looking at communities. They understand their land, ecosystem, and risk. So communities, they have lived on this land for generations. The Pacific Island communities, they live very close to the environment and they understand the environment very well. Having said that, they understand the tides, the soil, the season, where fish breed, the spawning areas, where mangrove grows. So these are the local knowledge that they have. So that's why it's very important. This is deep place-based knowledge, and something that no external consultant or project, they have it. So we need to have the people on board, the local communities, so because they have the local knowledge that we actually lack as external stakeholders. For example, elders may know where mangrove once thrived, and they might identify the correct area where mangrove can be grown. Women, they hold knowledge about community coastal plants and also food systems. So these are very important ways why we need to include the community. The first one, there are many, but I'll just go over three. First one was local knowledge. Second one is ownership. So when communities are involved from the beginning, they don't just participate, they take ownership of the project. So projects are more likely to be maintained and adapted over time. This ensures that, so this also allows local leadership and ensures that the project continues beyond the donor timeline. So mostly when we go to the, we go and implement the project, it's the project that takes the ownership, and when the project ends and locals are not engaged, then the project is not sustainable. So to take ownership, they need to be included in the project planning process. And then the last one is trust and to be transparent. Engagement builds social capital and resilience. For example, when communities are, the trust is very important in the Pacific Islands, especially when we are working with the local communities. So they want to be very transparent about what is happening, even where the fund is coming from, how long is the project, and they want to be realistic, and they also want to understand what the project is about. So when we are doing the project, it's very important for us to respect the cultural protocols and also the traditional governance that is in place so that we can strengthen the relationship. And also this trust enables faster, more flexible response when challenges arises in project. Because they're involved, they are able to assist as well when we are faced with challenges in projects. So in the Pacific, where culture, tradition, and environment are very deeply intertwined, community engagement is not optional. We don't see it as an option anymore. It is more like it's essential thing to do when we are working with the communities, especially when we look at long-term sustainability. So if you look at the best practice for fostering local ownership, so there is a lot of best practices in place, but I have picked the few ones that I have worked along with, and it's very important. So the first one, like Ludo mentioned, like start early and stay engaged. Involve communities from the planning phase, and also use local language and use culturally appropriate tools. So when you are starting, when we do project implement inception, we go and involve the stakeholders, we have meeting with the government, just one day visit the actual site and then we are back. But instead of this, we need to follow cultural protocols. We need to provide, for example, in Fiji, we have to have Sevu Sevu, and also we need to have Talanua session, and also try to involve, use local dialect. So, and then at the starting, tell them what is the timeline, what is the project about, what assistance is needed from them, how they can be part of the project. So you need to start very early on the project so that the community you are working with will stay engaged. And also be inclusive. So when you are having this project discussion, don't just call the men, or maybe you can say the one with very high status in the village. Try to call everyone and be inclusive, engage women, engage youth, engage elders, and also marginalized group. Have work in such a way that everyone is part of your project. So try to be inclusive and also respect traditional governance structure that is in place in different Pacific Islands. In Fiji, we have a different structure. We have a different with Vanuatu, with Tonga. We need to also include them and also ensure that we are very mindful of the cultural protocols and things that is already existing in the village, and we are not disturbing in any that is harmful to the, or they need to bind for this one. And then you'd use tools that are very important, that includes everybody. So it's very important to have community mapping, sit together with the community, and then try to include them in the discussion about, you have your plan about how would you do the project and what are the stages, but then it might not work in the community. Sit with them and then they will identify, just do a community mapping, open a storytelling session with them, and they easily open up and do some co-design workshop about what you are trying to achieve and how can they contribute, and let the communities define what success is. We are not there to define the success. We have our objective and our outcome, but remember, they will be the one working on the ground to do this project and help you in this project. So it's good that they also define what success looks like for these projects. And then building capacity, like it was mentioned, it is very important. Offer trainings, offer resources, and also offer leadership opportunities in your projects, and support local champions and also peer learning. So as you move on with your project, and if you have something that you want to share that is a bit technical, have a workshop with them. Train them how they can do and they can integrate the knowledge they have. And the next one is integrating local knowledge and socio-ecological context. So this is traditional knowledge. I will not touch very deep on this one because in the webinar 8, we have a big session on this one, but it is very important for integrating local knowledge in your projects. Engage communities using locally relevant methods such as emotional mapping, also transect work. You can work with them where your projects are, and also try to co-produce knowledge, the knowledge that you will use, which is more technical and scientific, and blend it with the knowledge that they have that could lead to more successful projects. Allow community participation to inform and potentially revise project goals. We can always revise the goals if we think that would work in that environment, rather than, so that also they will advise you if the project is duplicated, it's a duplication or not. They will tell you, okay, there was another similar project and we have already done this, maybe we can move to another step. So it's good to just sit with them and integrate their knowledge on what works in that environment. And finally, we need to create feedback loop. It's always good to provide feedback to the communities. As the project goes on, always advise them what is happening, what is the progress. It empowers them a lot. And apart from this, I also feel that we need to provide like networks and platforms while we are there. So create informal networks or communities of practice that will bring together the diverse stakeholders that you have, and also from different sectors that is present within the village and also that works around the community. These are some of the best practices for fostering local ownership at community level. So just very briefly, I'll show you one case study. This is a community-led mangrove planting for coastal protection. So in this project, the location is in Yandua village. This is in Singatoka, western part of Vitilevu. So the purpose of this project was to plant mangroves. This was not a restoration project because they have planted it where mangrove did not grow before. So they wanted to have mangrove there because a lot of problems they were facing due to coastal erosion, and also marine species were declining. And they wanted to have a trial to grow mangrove in one area. So this was a proactive nature-based solution that it was long term. So it started in year 2000, and it is quite sustainable project. So this was funded by NGO, and also a part of this funding came from the resort around that area that is in Coral Coast. So the funding was used to establish mangrove nurseries and purchase plant materials and tools, and also technical expertise that was provided, and sediment testing. So this was how the funding was used. So the idea of the project was to establish nurseries first and then use the seedlings from there to plant mangroves. So the approach that was used, it was a community co-design project. It engaged elders. So elders identified the best area where mangroves can be grown, and also youths became part of the monitoring process. They were engaged, they were given templates, and they were told that you can monitor as the mangrove grows. And also women group, they were in charge of looking at the nursery from the beginning. So there was a knowledge exchange. They blended traditional ecological knowledge with scientific planning. So this was very important because apart from the traditional knowledge that they had, like where it could be planted and which species can grow in that area. So USP also came in with scientific planning, because by that time it was established that mangrove was not growing in some areas. So you have to test the sediments and also know the spacing of growth, also look at the tides and also the direction the wind is coming, and if there's that area is suitable for mangrove growth, and how would you grow it in stages. So this is where scientific planning came up. So they worked together with a team from USP, and so it was a blend of scientific and traditional knowledge, and there was a good exchange. So there was also capacity building, training locals. Locals were trained on nursery management of mangroves, and they also did some monitoring and also adaptive planning. So how they did monitoring is when they got the seedlings from the mature nearby mangroves, and then they planted it in the nursery. So they monitored the nursery first. Some plant died, so they had a record of how many was planted, and then the next day the youths used to go around and look for other seeds and regrow it. So it took a bit of time, but then they had established a good nursery. Using that nursery, then they grew the mangrove. And also they have a shared ownership now. Like beginning of this year, I visited the village again, and I could see that they have nursery. They don't buy seedlings from anywhere. They keep planting it. So they are, and they also have seedlings that is like middle, it is growing, and some forest is now establishing. So they are telling me that is their project, and they are part of this, and it shows that they are very happy and they take ownership of this project. So I have some pictures from this project. So you can see this is one of the nursery they have. It's very simple in the plastic uh, uh, plastic bags. They have planted these seedlings, and it is growing very well. And also now they are sharing the seedlings with other villages around Coral Coast. And also, so you can see this middle one is the one that is not very mature, still growing. And then they have some mature. So this project actually started back in 2000. So this is, and they are continuing with this project. It was a very early stage of the project where NGOs were funding. They did not have this big fund. So this is the time that, and we can see without we having too much funds, this village were able to establish a very good mangrove site. And this was because they were involved in this one. The engagement was very good. So we had some session with the women. They were part of it. And also we have, you can see there's a separate engagement because we are respecting the culture, a separate session with men, with women, and then they work together on this project. So this is the last slide that I have about this a realistic project on how it works on the ground if we are implementing all this stuff. So that was a brief presentation on how it is working on this group. And looking at this, the time, we might have to skip the icebreaker for now, but we will have just a 5 minutes. I will open a session on Q&A session for you. If you have any question for Ludo or Clotilde or myself, you can always ask, unmute and ask, or you can put it on the chat box before we move to the next speaker. Thank you so much. If you do not have any question or you have any burning question, please put it in the chat. We will try to get back to you. So before we move to the next speaker, we will give this time to Jacinta to take the group photo for this session.
Hello, everyone. Requesting if you could turn on your cameras for a short session for a picture. Let's just give it a minute for everyone to turn on their cameras.
Where's my hair? All good?
Good. You look good, Clotilde. Can everyone please, if you're in groups as well, could you just turn on and show a little bit of the group? Okay. I think the rest are very shy to turn on the camera, but okay. Can we have big smiles, please? 1, 2, 3, cheese. Another one. 1, 2, 3, cheese. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jacinta, for your continuous support in this webinar. So now we'll move to our next speaker, which is Lorraine. She's from SPREP. She will give us insights on adapting NbS project and on-the-ground challenges. So can we have Lorraine now?
Thank you, Rakeshni. I just turn it on for my video on for the introduction bit, and then I'll turn it off. My apologies to everybody. So this is my face. If you have not seen me or don't know me, thank you. Thank you. Anyway, just a bulavinaka to everyone. Like I said, a quick introduction. I mentioned my name earlier, which is Lorraine Siva. I actually manage the PBAC Plus project, which stands for Pacific Ecosystem-Based Adaptation Project. And this project is implemented by SPREP, that's based out here in Fiji, in the Fiji office. And firstly, I'd like to thank the organizer, SBC, for allowing SPREP to present in this sixth webinar session on NbS. Sorry, let me share my PowerPoint presentation. Can you all see that?
Yes, we can, Lorraine.
Thank you. All right. Okay, I believe that I've been tasked to present on the topic of adaptive project management, responding to climate change in the context of PBAC Plus project implementation in this case. So firstly, so I don't know how to minimize this, but I hope it's not. Okay, so firstly, just a quick overview. Of my presentation, which will be the overview of the PBAC Plus project in terms of its goals and activities. And then secondly, I will touch on getting an understanding on why our project promotes nature-based solution as an option to climate change adaptation. And then thirdly, while we are implementing projects that focuses on NbS, why is it critical to effectively manage them in terms of understanding the importance of adaptation management? I'm having a bit of a problem moving on to the next slide. But anyway, PBAC Plus in a nutshell. This is a project that is funded through the QA initiative representing 5 donor countries. So the aim of the project really is to develop, scale up and institutionalize NbS to climate change adaptation. Develop, in a sense, we're trying to implement new NbS intervention for some sites, scale up based on lessons learned from previous NbS projects, identify what works and build on it, and institutionalize, in a sense, looking at successes from the project on the ground to drive policies and country strategies to recognize NbS as an option for climate change adaptation. The PBAC Plus project is implemented in 5 countries, and its key activities are really centered around forest and mangrove replanting and restoration to address deforestation and coastal erosion, promoting sustainable farming through agroforestry. So there's a balance between agriculture and conservation. We're also looking at providing support to the management of protected areas or heritage sites to maintain biodiversity. The project is also looking at ecological and socioeconomic assessment on natural resources to determine prioritized NbS interventions for management. And also we're looking at management of water catchment system to ensure functioning ecosystems to support water and livelihood security. We're also, again, looking at activities that support community-based marine managed areas development, a bit of a town greening for some of our project site, but most importantly, across all countries, we're really trying to also build capacity of stakeholders that are working within the space of EBA or EBS. With all those activities being mentioned or happening on the ground for us, why then are they important as nature-based solutions? When we could consider options of hard infrastructures or high-tech solutions as an option to consider. Well, nature-based solutions, they're important because they are actually natural protections against climate change impacts. For example, mangroves, in their capacity to absorb wave energy, they can basically help reduce storm surges and also flooding because they can absorb to a certain volume of water. Hence, by replanting them, can basically protect the coastline. Another reason, NbS enhances community resilience in terms of supporting livelihood through sustainable agriculture and manage fisheries and improve food and water security. And then thirdly, NbS can also restore ecosystems that are important both for biodiversity and carbon offsets. And overall, we all know that NbS is also cheaper. And it can also be self-sustaining. And here are just a few examples of the NbS work that we do, or options that are there for climate change adaptations. So now with the important question, why is effective project management critical for NbS success? To me, this is because, NbS projects, even though they're simple, they can also be complex in terms of involving multiple stakeholders, and basically they require long-term planning and coordination. Therefore, it's important to ensure that your NbS projects before implementations really have clear goals and alignments. So you will have to ensure that there are clear climate, biodiversity, or maybe community development goals. And then you also have success indicators to measure over time. Secondly, the implementation of NbS, it basically involves coordination of multiple stakeholders. So when you're doing planning, you must be sure that it's inclusive to avoid any conflict. There's improved ownership, and also there's accountability on the ground. And you may have noted this as well from Rakeshni's earlier presentation. And then again, also effective project management in NbS will allow efficient use of resources to avoid any wasting of funds. You're also able to ensure transparency, and most importantly, keeping the project on track. Specific to point 4, NbS successes often depends on long-term sustainability. So you have to make sure that when you're implementing your project, you have good M&E systems in place, because this will help adaptive management to happen. And then lastly, NbS requires ongoing maintenance, and so community engagement and policy support. Therefore, an effective project management will take into consideration an exit strategy, capacity building mechanisms in terms for handing over to local institution. So overall, I would say, that, NbS projects are not just about planting trees like we think that we do, or restoring wetlands. They're about managing people. You're also looking at managing ecosystems and the changes that's happening around us. So for an effective project management, it's really, the effective project management itself is the glue that holds, all these moving parts together, ensuring there's meaningful and lasting impacts when we're implementing our project. So without a good project management, we can run into many challenges of implementation of NbS projects, such as, projects lacking focus or fail to engage communities. We can also run into budget and timeline overruns or overspent. You can also see that, without managing a good NbS project, the ecosystems itself, or the interventions that you are trying to implement on the ground, may be ecologically inappropriate or sustainable. And then just the last one, the long-term benefits may be lost due to poor follow-ups. In summary, he is just re-emphasizing key project management principles in NbS. In my next slide, I will focus specifically on adaptive management and using a flexible approach rather. So why is adaptive management important in NbS projects? When we're implementing NbS projects, we have to be mindful that the surrounding environment in terms of the climate and social conditions, they're also changing. Therefore, we must allow our approaches to be adaptable. So usually when projects are designed, activities are often predetermined. And by the time a project is approved and implemented, a lot has changed. So an intervention of NbS earlier mentioned in the design may no longer be relevant. And this is where adaptive management comes in. Sometimes adaptive management comes in when there are challenges or issues encountered, and you use the lessons learned to redesign your NbS activities. When we talk about adaptive management, it's about continuous learning and reflection. What am I doing? What is not in terms of that is not working? Should I try it this way or should I do it that way? It's about monitoring data, to also inform decisions with this NbS intervention. There has been no significant improvement. So should I try another alternative? And these are the kind of questions we should be asking. So, again, adaptive management should be flexible in planning and also in implementation. So when it comes to timeline and budget, there should be revisions made. Community feedback loops is also important. So there's inclusiveness and participation of everyone to solve the problem. And it's not just made by one person. And also just, an interactive decision-making process should be considered. Because so that again, like I said, not just one-way decision-making process, but everyone is involved in the decision-making. And then lastly, testing actions or approaches, looking at the results of these approaches, and then adapting accordingly. Here's just two examples of, adaptive management in the way that we've implemented our project. The first one, we started with mangrove planting in an exposed site, and over time, we noted that the species we planted were not growing enough, or our survival rate was very low. So as an adaptive approach, we took, after months of monitoring, was to switch to a more resilient native species that was common to the site. We also decided to plant further inland and then work our way out towards the high tide mark, because planting in a more sheltered area would allow our mangrove seedlings to grow more quickly. We also decided to add breakwaters to support them. And in our next monitoring, we were able to note a good survival rate. So here's just a picture on the side that you'll see how we did our planting based on the lessons learned from the previous implementation of mangrove planting. But we took these lessons learned and fitted it in as an adaptive learning process for us. And over time, when we went back, I think the picture at the bottom, you'll see how it has grown so successfully when we first planted it. So that's all about adaptive learning. It's based on lessons learned, what worked, what didn't work, and then trying to find a new solution to make it happen in terms of the implementation of your projects on the ground. And then just the second challenge, the other one, the lack of ownership to the reforestation project that was noticed in PBAC 1. And after much consultations with community, and conducting our research on lessons learned, we decided to change our approach. This time, instead of asking the whole community to participate in the project, we were only targeting those land-owning units, that had already expressed their interest with the Ministry of Forestry to do planting on their land. To use this was an indication that there was already that commitment coming from communities. And based on that, we conducted more focused consultations to obtain further consensus. We are actually working with them, with the communities on the ground in terms of planning and implementation, but most importantly, monitoring. And as a result, we've seen improved ownership and decision-making processes. So a take-home lesson for us was really, how was the first phase 1 project implemented, again, taking on the lessons learned, what worked, what didn't work. We changed the way we were going to approach PBAC Plus. And at the end, like I said, what we noticed was there was improved ownership from the communities that we were working with. And again, just based on the lessons learned that I've shared, and also in the scope of the work that we do, adaptive management was important to us, because it allowed us to respond effectively to the changing environment conditions. Instead of planting mangroves in exposed areas, we chose to start in a sheltered condition and work our way out. We were also able to enhance stakeholders' engagement in terms of the approach used for tree planting. And like I said, adaptive management for us, the approach that we used was able to increase our project effectiveness, in a sense that we were not only relying on one approach, but allowing ourselves, the flexibility to use different approach if one initially planned did not work for us. Also, just the lesson learned overall, we were able to identify risk and make changes before failure. In terms of the site selections, the engagement of the right people, and basically the approach to use. One of the things that we also learned, through this, we were also able to create great ownership and buy-in, because it allowed the process of consultation and participation. And then finally, just the decision makings that was made in the implementation of our projects were not based on assumptions, but rather they were based on evidence decision makings. And then just to wrap up my presentation, because of time, I thought I would just leave you with this phrase, adaptive management is just not a method. It's a mindset that ensures NbS remains effective in a changing environment. Vinaka.
Thank you so much, Lorraine, for your presentation. And we appreciate the work that you do on the ground and see the real challenges and how we can learn better from the things that are done at the community level. So just, I'll give this brief moment to Jacinta. Just let's energize with a quick icebreaker led by Jacinta. So Jacinta, just a quick one before we move on to the next and the final presentation.
Okay, so okay. Okay, so we're going to have a quick icebreaker. So as you can see on the screen, I have projected is known as show and tell. So if every single participant of ours, if you are willing to pick out something green and show it to us, you have 1 to 2 minutes to go quickly and retrieve a object that is green, and please turn on your cameras to show it and unmute yourself to actually tell us what it actually resembles when it comes to nature. So your timer starts now, and we can't wait to actually see what you showed us and tell us about the significance of that object.
Do I win a prize for being quick?
Okay, so anyone who's willing to speak up?
Yeah, sure, I'll go. Okay, so I've got lemongrass insect repellent, which has a green label, and it resembles, I guess, nature taking revenge with dengue fever. Um, um, and lemongrass also being part of nature, part of the solution.
And someone
I'll go
else,
next, please.
maybe Clotilde.
Hello, yes. Well, it's definitely part of the solution. It's aloe vera. Aloe? What do you say in English?
Aloe vera.
Aloe vera. Here we go. So you can see me, but here it is. Beautiful.
Thank you, Clotilde. Yes, Vinay.
I think this speaks for itself. I may have to turn off the yeah, this is nature in itself, and I keep it all with me every now and then. It's always on my desk, whether it's in the office or at home. Thanks.
Thank you, Vinay. Leah.
I have a poster behind me. I think it's a salad as well. And yeah, it's from one of our projects. And you can see women are very busy on the poster growing some food.
Thank you, Leah. Utale.
Hi.
Hello.
So when I quickly had green things next to me, which was a bottle of vitamin C to keep those nasty flu bugs away, a green post-it, and mints. But then I realized that there was a key thing about nature being involved. So I snatched this from my colleague's window. It's baby Groot with a plant growing in his head, reflective of nature. And we all get to share the view that he has of his plant growing on his window. So yeah, something green.
Thank you, Utale. Fifine.
Hello everyone. When you said something green, I went outside and got this cassava leaf. It comes from it's a small backyard gardening done outside the staff room. The leaves can, once it's dried or fallen, it can be used as organic fertilizer to enrich the soil, and it's also part of food security because it improves food security. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fifine. Lorraine. If there's anyone else. Sorry, Lorraine, you're mute.
I said I wanted to pull the Christmas tree in our box, but it was too heavy to get it out. So I ended up having a small flag marker, I think, for all your project site. Be sure that you have a map, your NbS project site, and pin them and mark them so you know where they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. Delzio.
I don't know the name of this plant, but we have it on our dining table because it makes the dining table look cute. It's a cute plant.
Thank you, Delzio. Is there anyone else who would like to share something they have which is green and relating to nature base? Anyone? No? Okay, all good. Thank you so much. And I hope this actually energized each and every one of you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacinta, for that. So we had interesting things to see. So now we'll move to our last speaker, Leah. So while we are doing so many things, like we also got some very good comment from Harsha. Monitoring and evaluation is very important to see where we are heading. Is it effective? So now we'll have Leah who will talk about effective MEL is a key to impact. So all yours, Leah.
I'll share my presentation maybe myself. So let's dive into Mel. And I would probably say stop me if like there is something burning as we go. But I'll try it. So Mel is quite complex subject. So obviously I won't be able to cover everything, and we have a dedicated day for that. But I'll try to unpack some of the key concepts that are important during the implementation. And I think I will continue going back to planning stage as well, because this implementation very much depends on how well you planned. So in terms of why MEL matters during the implementation, obviously we needed to track progress and guide the course correction. There was a lot of mentioning today of the adaptive management. We need adaptive decision making as well as we course correct and move on through implementation. And it's specifically important for the NbS project. I very much agree with the previous speaker. We need build evidence for learning and scaling and for next generation of projects. So the stronger we monitor now ongoing projects, the better we will be at the planning stage in the future. And it ensures accountability to communities, partners, and our funders, of course. Mm-hmm. I showed you last time the slide, but I just want to bring you back on the cause-effect analysis when we build MEL systems. So I just want to stop a little bit again on this one. It's important to build strong theory of change where you in your head understand where you come from in terms of identification of issues, speaking to community stakeholders, really unpacking the issue you are trying to solve, because this in fact helps you build a strong MEL. And this cause-effect analysis that underlies TOC is just not simply a paragraph that you come across in project documents. Now, if you do something, then there will be an outcome. Behind that very dry phrase, there should be a very robust cause and effect analysis where stakeholders, partners, your beneficiaries, maybe donors, and experts in the field are engaged in defining the problem and identifying immediate underlying and root causes. And you build your MEL from down to the top. Quick reminder on the results chain. Results are changes in state or condition that derive from a cause and effect relationship that we just talked about. And MEL frameworks usually cover outputs, outcomes, and impacts. I'd like to stop also here, and I showed this slide previously, the results chain. So as I said, MEL frameworks in its design focus on the outputs, which are short-term results. They are tangible, they are products or services, usually, which results from the completion of activities within a development intervention using the inputs that you have. Inputs are your resources. Outcomes, usually they are collective results. They likely achieved through short-term and medium-term effects of an intervention's outputs. Outcomes comprise of a collection of outputs. And then finally, the impact is changing human lives, simply put. They may be positive or negative. Results-based management cycle is effectively your planning, monitoring, and evaluation are not a linear process. This is more of a cycle where we use monitoring to inform and course correct the project interventions. We evaluate a certain period of times to inform whether the project is achieving what it was intended to achieve, whether the outcomes and impacts are negative or positive, etc. And then the results of the monitoring and evaluation help us set the vision And again, we plan for the future interventions, for scaling up of interventions or creating new projects, knowing what we know at the time. MEL tools, briefly, there are a lot at the moment, but we largely begin to encompass the AI, the mobile data collection, such as ODK, Kobo Toolbox, Microsoft Suite. We use satellite imagery. You may have heard the DEP that SPC has. We use perception studies, participatory scoring, and other methods of evaluation. And we create dashboards and visual storytelling as part of the MEL and communications. There has been a talk about adaptive management, and it's important in the NbS, and this is true. For the adaptive management, in terms of MEL, there are a couple of tools that can be embedded in your MEL design, apart from the results framework. So you may think about creating regular feedback loops. It can be a simple window on your website or social media where people feel safe giving feedback on the project, creating regular community meetings or regular consultations with your stakeholders through project steering committee or board, etc. So listening to stakeholders on a regular basis, create that nature of adaptiveness in the project as you implement it, and reflecting that in the results framework and MEL systems is something that you could consider establishing. We touched on the integrating communications and MEL last time, and I'd like to unpack this a little more today to say that as we generate knowledge through MEL, communications is really key to making sure that our results are being communicated back to our stakeholders, communities, and donors as well. Communications help us to localize the language and make our more technical language in the MEL sound down to earth and applicable to the particular context. Embedding communications and MEL as one function in the project is also important to institutionalize some of the feedback loops, simplify MEL for communities, provide for right channels of communication of MEL results, and help MEL specialists to create relevant contact and make our reporting back to communities and donors more kind of relevant. Capturing results across the results chain. I found this graph quite useful in depicting how adaptation may work in the MEL processes. So in terms of managing results, when we plan for results, implement, report on the performance, learn, and create new actions, we use a lot of tools such as not only a regular annual reporting or midterm reporting, but management reviews, internal audit findings are also important to inform MEL and adaptive management. Evaluations, as we said earlier, and iterative program implementation, which means that we always come back to the drawing board when necessary or if conditions are changing, and it's specifically relevant to the NbS related projects. So a little bit of hardcore theory, but I'll just say that I'm going to focus on what do we mean by outputs outcomes, and indicators when we talk MEL. And I think it's important that you as leaders in the field or experts in the field understand the difference. So in terms of outcomes, what are they? They are actual or intended changes in development conditions that interventions are seeking to support. Usually, this is a result of collective effort. Outcomes are short to medium term, but usually within the framework of 3 to 5 years. And outcomes cannot be achieved by a single NbS or any other project. So outcomes can be found in your strategic documents, in the directives of the government, or higher level strategic documentation. They may be formulated together with other stakeholders, but just to bear in mind that outcomes is something that we achieve collectively, and we have less control over achieving the outcomes than other level of results. I'll come to that. In terms of guides, avoid action verbs strengthening, enhancing. It's more about when you use those, it's more about activities. Avoid intentions to assist the communities. Again, it's a activity level result. Use completed verbs such as reduce, improved, have greater access to. Outcomes must signal that something has changed. That something must be important to the region, community, or country. Avoid buzzwords like gender mainstream because it's wishy-washy. Very often you may find mistakes in the outcome formulation, such as very wordy, very long, too ambitious, containing multiple results in one sentence. Wishy-washy, as I said, very generic, that can mean anything. An example is to promote sustainable development and increase capacity, which can mean anything. Good examples are here. Reduction in flood incidents in targeted coastal communities, for example, increased vegetation cover in previously degraded areas, usually concrete area would be indicated, improved household income from NbS-related livelihoods, enhanced biodiversity in restored ecosystems. Now, outputs. Outputs is your project results, is something that you have full control over, usually. So they're tangible, they're deliverable, they are promises that you can make. Outputs essentially are operational changes, new skills you build, abilities, availability of new products or services that projects build, must be achieved within the project period. Managers have high degree of control over them. Failure to deliver is failure of the project normally. 3/6 outputs per an outcome is a good range. I would say 6 is kind of pretty a lot. 3 to 4 is an ideal scenario. Outputs are usually not collective results. Outputs, as I said, is something you have full control over, the results of the project. Good examples could be 100 hectares of mangroves restored, 250 community members trained, 5 community-based resource management plans developed, 3 water catchment areas rehabilitated. Now, indicators. This may be very technical, but I feel like managers and specialists need to understand what they are when they read MEL frameworks, or when they work together with their MEL specialists. So indicators are just measure of performance. They should not sound like results. So when we talk about monitoring, we talk about how are we doing something. When we talk about indicators, is how do we know? So indicators, they describe how the intended results will be measured. Objectively verifiable, repeatable measures of a particular condition. They force clarification of what is measured, and usually should be accompanied by baselines and targets. Sorry, the text is hidden below. I like this graph because it shows how you establish targets through understanding your baseline and then report on the achievements for a given period of time. So target is your commitment, while your report is essentially your performance. An indicator is something that is not visible on the graph, but helps you understand how you measure the achievement. So indicator elements are indicators should have the following: the unit of analysis, existing baseline information, target for subsequent comparison, expected perception or judgments of progress by stakeholders, detailed description of expected conditions or situation to be observed. Normally for an output, you would have 1 to 4 indicators. What types of indicators there are? There are 4 key types. One is a factual, usually yes or no. It's a question that can be answered by yes or no. For example, policy recommendations submitted, existence of services or products, yes or no. Numeric or quantitative is where we count number of government officials trained or number of trainings conducted. Not a very good indicators, but it's theoretically a valid one. Percentage of government budget devoted to climate change, ratio, sorry, there's a typo here, ratio of female to male training enrollment. There are qualitative indicators, or now we like to say descriptive indicators, where in addition to, and usually this would go in accompany, in, how do you say it in English? Ideally, qualitative indicators would accompany your quantitative indicator to give a bigger picture. For example, inclusive and participatory policy making. So if we count policy recommendations submitted, we would also want to make sure that they have been inclusive, and participatory process. Increased level of awareness on a particular subject, quality of agriculture processes. If we produce a product and we have just a number of services, this is not giving us a full picture. So we want to add a qualitative element to that, or extent of involvement of civil society, for example, in our project. And proxy indicators. Proxy indicators is used when direct indicators, all of the above, are not feasible to include or very expensive to collect data on. So proxy in this case can be used. So you identify indicators that may be relevant to your output, which is not giving you a direct answer to whether you are on the right track, but rather indirect if this is more cost effective. But in a good MEL framework, we normally use direct indicators, and there should be a budget allocated in the project budget for the MEL purposes and relevant data collection to inform decision making. I see there are a lot of questions, but maybe I'll finish before jumping into the, or do you want me to stop? No, nothing burning. Yeah. Another example on good outputs, outcomes, and impact statements. In terms of challenges and solutions to MEL that you may bear in mind, data gaps. So whenever you design your MEL frameworks, try to find those gaps and utilize, where possible, mixed methods, as we discussed above. Quantitative and qualitative indicators might solve some of the data gaps. So whenever you look through the MEL framework, try to identify this balance between quantitative and qualitative indicator and information. Lack of local ownership. When we are in a rush, especially for NbS projects, it is important to ensure that we do no harm, and it is a new notion in the MEL world is safe to fail. So we like to have safe to fail solutions embedded in the project. But for NbS related project, this failing may be very costly. So spending enough time on planning, on doing proper research to identify the baseline, speaking to communities and gathering essential information through needs assessments is something that I would recommend. And Ludovic, by the way, has a very good example of a recent Kiwa proposal development through spending a lot of time on consultations with country to identify baseline data, so needs assessments. Siloed reporting, so whenever possible, build MEL into project management processes where reporting is widely shared and discussed. Poor feedback loops. Projects may be in a rush to implement project and focus too much on achieving results and report back to donors, and sometimes forget to collect feedback through communities. So try to institutionalize feedback loops into the project implementation from early on so that it's built into the culture. So final takeaways are these. There may be more, but I'll probably stop with this 4. MEL is a living system. So once you build your results framework, it's not set in stone, and it can be and should be actually changed. And the good practice is when you go back to the results framework and you actually change it, informed by the data that you are collecting on a regular basis. Embed MEL into operation, not just design. Let MEL guide not only what we do, but how we adapt. And use MEL for learning, credibility, and influence. I would probably also use it here for communication. I will stop here to see if you would have questions. I'll quickly go to the chat. Or jump in if you have questions or comments on this. Maybe just unmute yourself.
There's 2 questions from the chat.
2 questions. How is MEL integrated in community level? Am I unmuted? Yeah. Okay, how is MEL integrated in community level? First of all, through planning. When we are coming to a particular area with an idea, very often we need to consult with communities, if not all the time. So that's the one. So through planning, we integrate MEL by collecting necessary information from community, sharing the idea, and making sure that they are happy with what we are going to do with the project. Throughout the implementation, MEL's function is creating those feedback loops where community can have a very direct access to the project team and share if they feel that the project is going on the right direction, or if something goes wrong, that they immediately can have that feedback communicated to the project. So proactively seek for community feedback as you go with the implementation, but also let community know through either website, a window, as we said, or a relevant phone number or an email address, or any other or a regular conversation with community if they don't have an access to the internet, etc. And finally, through evaluation, perhaps when projects are being evaluated at the midterm or at the end of the project, communities should have a voice on saying whether they feel that a project was useful to them or not. Was there a second question? Are these tools available to provide a better integration with the community? Are there tools available? So depending on the community, I would suppose, so for example, I worked in Afghanistan and there were some very remote locations with no internet access. We were sending NGOs to collect data, and we were using ODK, online data collection tool, which can be accessed through the phone even if there is no internet. Data has been collected through a simple questionnaire, and then once NGO was back in town with the internet access, they could immediately send us, and we could receive the data. So there are quite different tools that can be embedded. Local NGOs can be used when we talk about very remote locations, but usually depends on where your team is being located. You can have regular meetings with the communities embedded if it's not very costly and if you have relevant budget. If community has access to internet, there can be email shared with them where they can provide their feedback. It can be even a Facebook page of a project where community members could be added and leave their comments. If it's a very sensitive project and anonymity is needed, then you can employ a third-party data collector to ensure anonymity of the feedback. So different tools. And maybe I could share my email if you have a project coming up or you are struggling with MEL design. You can send it to me. I'm happy to give you a hand to support with your MEL.
Thank you so much, Leah, for
My
your
pleasure.
very comprehensive presentation and also taking the question and answers. So we are coming to the end of this webinar session, and please take some time to fill the feedback form that we have. It's very important to fill this. I got very less response from the last webinar. So if you could just take some time so that we can improve on our next webinars. And at the same time, well, you can still put your comments and questions on the chat box and we'll get back to you. So I'd like to thank each and everyone for joining this webinar, and also a heartfelt thanks to all our speakers for their expertise, and to everyone here for making this session very dynamic and collaborative. We have 2 more webinars left, and the next one is totally dedicated to monitoring and evaluation. You'll have a comprehensive outlook. This will be again led by Leah. So please do attend that webinar on MEL. And then we have a final webinar on inclusive NbS, where we will be looking at JETC and also traditional knowledge, and how NbS in the end ties together as an inclusive process. So I would like to thank you again for joining, and let's keep this momentum. We have only 2 series left, and please go back to the post webinars materials that I always share with you. These materials will be available to you till September. So please download whatever presentation and pre-readings and everything that you need from this series. And also stay tuned for the next post-webinar material, which I'll try to send to you tomorrow or this week. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the next session. And all of you take care. Please do take a few minutes to fill the feedback session before you leave the webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rakeshni.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rakeshni. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.